The rising costs of fast food companies betting customers will pay more as a record-long economic expansion goes on, 10-plus years. Chains like McDonald's and Chipotle upping prices, looking to cover higher prices on ingredients, transport, labor, and a lot more as the minimum wage inches up. Joining us right now is the CEO of A&W, Kevin Bazner. And Kevin, it's great to have you on the program this morning.
Well, it's great to be here, Maria.
Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about with you, but first, give us your take on the minimum wage increasing and what impact that has on small business.
Well, clearly it's a challenge, but we find in our business the bigger challenge is labor availability, period. Forget the minimum wage. It's really availability of labor.
So what are you having to pay now?
Well, certainly minimum wage is a non-starter. Today's minimum wage is a non-starter. It's really about finding enough labor, period.
When you say it's a non-starter, what do you mean?
Well, you can't hire people at minimum wage. You just simply can't.
You mean you have to pay them more?
You have to pay them more.
Yeah.
You have to pay them more.
Idea of starting, do you pay them 10, 11?
Well, you're $10 to $12. You have to pay today. You have to pay $10 to $12 just to get just to be in the game. But the labor availability in our industry is the bigger challenge.
Who are those people making the minimum wage? There's an argument that, oh, these are, just starting their career, these are college kids. Who do you think is actually making the minimum wage? Because there are tons of companies out there and tons of jobs out there that you don't pay anywhere near there. They're getting much more than that. Those are senior people with experience, but minimum wage, does that include a certain population?
Well, it's entry level. There's no question about it. It's the teenagers, it's the part-time workforce, it's whether that's younger or older people with a second job. It's more of that. But again, minimum wage is very difficult to hire anyone at minimum wage.
But I'm assuming it can change based on the city that you're in, right?
Well, there's no question about it. And for us, a lot of our stores are in rural markets, more rural market as opposed to larger cities. We don't have a presence in New York, for example. So, we're talking about $15 an hour minimum wage, where we're out on West Coast, out in Seattle and in Washington State and Oregon.
Well, it's different areas where the cost of living is lower.
That's correct.
So you can understand. But the Wall Street Journal wrote a piece, and it's titled, "New York City Businesses Struggling to Keep Up After Minimum Wage Increase." One person told the Journal, what it really forces you to do is make sure that nobody works more than 40 hours. It's funny because even Bernie Sanders the other day got criticized for saying, I want the minimum wage, and then we found out that he wasn't paying his own people the minimum wage, and instead of actually paying them $15, what does he do? He cuts back their hours.
Right.
So what's the impact is really what I'm getting at of the $15 minimum wage?
Well, an impact of $15 minimum wage is going to be less labor hours. I mean, you're going to have to take labor out of the business model, whether it be rely more on technology.
Kiosk a good replacement?
Kiosk is part of it. I mean, there's some consumer education going on there, but consumers are accepting it more and more. So it's really the higher the minimum wage, if you may, the more you're going to work at reducing labor costs, right? Labor hours, which is the only other way to do it, right?
So you're talking about a labor shortage and difficulty finding employees to take jobs. What else are you offering them in addition to just their hourly pay? What kind of perks have you had to step up with? Because I actually ask this question to everybody I encounter. How do you like working here? What else do you get other than a paycheck from the company?
Right. But very good question. A very good question, actually. And for us, we are focusing much more today than ever on retention. Okay, so retention, what does retention mean? Retention means proper training. People leave our industry because what they do is either they don't feel that they're trained well enough to do their job, so they're uncomfortable with it, or they don't feel that they're appreciated. So we're attacking both of those areas in our business, and that is just retention, respecting the people that work for you, providing them with a good working environment, providing them with the appropriate training, and using technology to do all of that.
Have you considered things like stock options or college, as Starbucks did with Arizona State University, programs like that?
Not yet. I mean, for the most part, a lot of our labor that non-management level, those things are not as important to them as what they take home in their paycheck every two. We do provide comprehensive health care for our full-time employees throughout our restaurants. Yeah.
Are you into the meatless trend? Let's talk about that, because A&W Canada has a partnership with Beyond Meat, right? That includes burgers and now breakfast sausage. Do you expect that to come to the United States?
Absolutely, it's already here. We have a great relationship with Canada. They've done a great job with the Beyond Meat burger, and we have it in test in 20 locations as we speak.
You think Beyond Meat is better than the Impossible Burger, right?
The Impossible Burger is more delicious.
You like that better?
But the sausage is really great. I'm vegan, that's why. But the sausage is really great, and quite frankly, particularly in taste tests with avowed carnivores, they really love the fake sausage.
The fake sausage.
It is. Well, that's what it is.
What is it really?
It's a plant-based product.
It's like pea protein, right? Crushed up peas, crushed up beets. That gives you a little color, right? That sort of mimics the blood.
Juice. That's right.
Can you do an Impossible hot dog? Your hot dogs are superb.
Well, it hasn't been done yet, but it's all.
You want to do that? You're A&W.
Well, there is a demand for it. There's no question about it. It's somewhat of a different consumer, but not as different as you would expect.
How's the new structure going? Splitting from Yum, A&W breaking from the global restaurant company back in 2011. Tell us about the turnaround. What has happened these last 5-6 years?
It's been great, actually. We're an independent brand again for the last 7.5 years. We've stabilized the business after a decade, more than a decade of declines. We're growing the business again. We've stabilized store counts both here and in Southeast Asia, where we have a strong international presence. And things are going well. We're outperforming the industry in terms of same-store sales. Have been now for 7.5 years. We're on our 8th year of same-store sales growth, and things are looking good.
Have you seen an impact from the China fight?
Very little. A little bit in our supply chain, but very little to this point. How it's going to affect the consumers ultimately is probably our bigger concern than our own supply chain.
Well, yeah, when you talk about same-store sales, I was just curious, what's the one element that you would say is responsible in a good way for those being strong for you? What's working? I would say
really two things. One is we are primarily a franchise business, and it's just our franchisees getting them re-engaged in the business, number one. And number two is our emphasis on quality as our value proposition. We're not out there discount pricing and competing with everything you see with our competitors out there with $4 for $4, et cetera. Everything everyone's trying to get out of because of rising minimum wage and rising costs, et cetera. So our whole value proposition is quality, and people will pay for and wait for and appreciate quality.
Especially when it's a float, and it is National Free Float Day. From 2 until 8 p.m. today, A&W restaurants are giving out free root beer floats to help an excellent cause. They doing this for disabled American veterans, and you brought some floats for us today. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. We sure did.
Tell me about the program going on today.
Well, A&W has a history. This is our centennial year, by the way, and so in 1919, our founder, Roy Allen, welcomed troops home from World War I in a parade in California, serving A&W root beer.
How beautiful!
And so we've been at that. So this is since we've been involved in the business the last 7 years, we've supported veteran-related charities, and this is the 3rd year with disabled American veterans. We hope to top the $1 million mark this year. We're at $800,000 and counting. So we hope to raise over $200,000 this year in our stores throughout the country. We're serving free root beer floats to everyone from 2 to 8 today.
That's terrific.
And we're asking people to consider paying it forward with a donation to the disabled American vets.
That's beautiful. Right. Thank you for doing that. That's wonderful. And by the way, this is so good.
You cannot have a bad day. You're going to have a great day.
Wow.
Every day
is a great day. What is in this root beer float? Is it just root beer and ice cream, or what is it? This is so good.
Is the free float this size, though? Or is it smaller?
It's smaller.
I figured.
It's smaller, but hey.
That's okay. It's free.
Yours is free. Yeah. Yours is free.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
Better than beer.
Yeah.
Sure is.
That's right.
Delicious. Cheers. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Kevin Bazner there, CEO at A&W.